Alright, so in our Photoshop file we have a background layer which is white. Now, these are all our diffuse textures, so I'm going to take my layer 0 here and unlock it. I'm going to select, shift select all my layers. And you can either right click, create a group, or you can do Ctrl+G to group it. And this is going to be my diffuse group. I'm also going to duplicate this, which again you can right click, duplicate, or you can do Ctrl+J. And this one is going to be called my opacity group, or opaque. So I'm going to hide my diffuse group because I don't need that right now. I just want to open up my opaque group here. And black is see-through. So I'm going to first go ahead and do the easy things. So the background needs to be black. So I've got my black color here. You could press D for default colors. And then go to our paint bucket tool, which is behind the gradient tool. And we'll just fill that in black. Awesome. Right, now we'll do the easy ones. Our text layer at the top here, we need to invert it. So I just simply do Ctrl+I, which inverts the colors. So now white is solid. Black is see-through. So same thing for the spider web. I select the spider web and do Ctrl+I. Ctrl+I. I do want to zoom in and make sure it's white. Yes, it looks good. Awesome. Now, if this were not painted on its own layer, and this was an image from somewhere that you paid for that had a free license, we would have to use something like hue and saturation and our selection tools and levels. So we'd have to manually cut it out. But since this is on its own layer, I don't have to cut it out because it's hand drawn on its own layer. So there's no, it's already been cut out. So for this grass 1 and 2, what we're going to do is we're just going to do a color overlay. So what I'm going to do is double click to bring up my layer styles. I'll click color overlay and just make this white. Click OK. Blend mode's normal. It's all good. OK. I'm going to do the same thing for grass 02. Double click in this area on the right side of the layer. We'll do a color overlay, white, and click OK. Right, now we have our, you can minimize these. We have ours. Oh, I have 2 spider web layers. So spider copy, I also have to do Ctrl+I as well. I meant to merge those together. So, and spider copy, the blending mode is set to multiply, but it's not black anymore. So I'm going to do the opposite and do screen, which is going to make my spider web back to being thick again. So screen for spider copy, and the spider layer is just normal blending mode. So these two, I could just go ahead and merge them together, just Ctrl+E, or you can right click, merge layers. And now I have 1 layer spider web. Now we're going to move on to our rust drip here, which we may have to make some alterations with levels and a few other things. But let's see what this decal looks like. We can just put a color overlay and see. It actually looks, I think, okay. Yep, so we'll just do a white color overlay for the rust as well. And the grays are going to be slightly see-through. So we're just doing the color overlay layer style on it as well. So pretty simple. We have our opacity map group now. So now we have our opacity map itself. So what we're going to do is File, Save As. I'm going to change this to a JPEG. And WoodSign 02, I'm going to put underscore opaque. And I'm going to save this out. We'll do 12 and click OK. So for 3ds Max, this should work perfectly, where we come in here to our WoodSign scene, hit M for Material Editor. If you need to, you can grab the eyedropper and select the material, but it should be already front and center here. So we have our diffuse. I'm going to go grab my opacity map here that we saved out, and I'm going to plug this in to the opacity slot. So we may have some areas of the grass and the spider web that are white. That is because our opacity map is too thick, or those areas weren't cut out very cleanly. But our text and our rust should be looking really nice right now. So with our grass, what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and collapse the unwrap here. And I'm going to go ahead and press E for rotate or E-tate. And I'm going to hold Shift and rotate a copy of this grass out. And then now we kind of have this billboard type grass. Alright, so this works great in 3ds Max, but this would not work in Unity. Unity does not take an opacity map. So I'm going to go back to my Photoshop file and take a look at my opacity map here. So if we go to the Channels tab right next to Layers, we have red, green, and blue channels, and we can create an alpha. So what I want to do first is I'm going to take my opaque group. This goes really quickly, but I'm going to duplicate it by pressing Ctrl+J. The new duplicate group, I'm going to merge it, instead of being a group, to be one layer, so I'm going to do Ctrl+E. So I just have a whole new layer. I'm going to Control-click the thumbnail, or I could just use the marquee and drag over the whole space just to select it. I'm going to copy this, Control-C. I'm going to go over to my channels, and I'm going to create a new Alpha 1, and I'm just going to do Control-V to paste it in. So this alpha is what Unity will use for the transparency. So now what I would need to do is I can go ahead and, whoops, my channels, if your alpha is on, you want to turn your RGB back on and turn the alpha off. You don't need to see the alpha, it's just knowing that it's there. So layers, I'm going to hide this layer. I'm going to hide the opaque group. And I'm going to save this since I'm using it in 3ds Max still. So I save it. But in order to have the diffuse and the opacity for Unity, I'm going to save out one file. So I would go File, Save As, and I am going to do PNG, but just so you know, Targa would also work. Targa saves channels, but we're going to use PNG for this one. So we're just going to call it WoodSign 02, change your save as type to PNG. We'll click Save. You'll get a pop-up, right? Smallest compression is fine. We click OK, so just the defaults. And it will save out a file. If I open up just this file and look at the channels, nope, I'm missing the Targa. Now maybe because we're in 8-bit mode, I'm not sure. So let's go ahead and do this again. File, Save As. This time we're going to do a Targa file. Save it. Ah, here we go. So this one gives us the option 32 bits is what we want because that'll make sure that we have the extra information in the file. We click OK. Saves out the Targa. Just to check it, I'm going to drag in my Targa up here to the top. Its own tab. Oh, looky there. There's my Targa, and I have my alpha. It's not visible, which is fine, because it doesn't need to be visible. Unity just references the alpha channel. So we now have one layer, which is our diffuse, and our channels has the alpha, which will be used for the transparency. So pretty simple. I will save my PSD, close out of my Targa, and I am good to go.